Patterns often have a component of repetition. Even if a pattern itself is irregular, it can be used many times. In this repetition, there is a certain usefulness. Repeating patterns allow for prediction. Prediction is a sort of connection between here and somewhere else. Using patterns allows this connection to spread out capabilities and control. Predicting what we will see and understand means that we can prepare for the future in advance. Many of the activities that humans do is essentially a form of prediction. Science, superstition, tradition, those are all examples of harnessing prediction. Our form of tools and understanding of reality also allows us to form a method of prediction. Even the most crude form of prediction creates a guideline for what is to come. Forming a prediction is easy whenever there is a repetition. That repetition is a pattern itself or a result of patterns. Repetition is easy to notice. If even two components of any system are the same, they potentially form a pattern. A solid repetition is formed from multiple simple repeating patterns, or from a numerous amount of related components. Once a pattern is recognized as repeating, it is useful in several ways. A checklist for what to expect ensures that anticipated components are not missed. An advanced use of prediction is a recipe or template. This automates the thinking process and allows patterns to be formed with a trust that they will follow or otherwise connect to the pattern represented in the template. Accurate guidelines improve the connection between the original and produced patterns. In our last video, we made a pseudocode for what we were going to do exactly to make our first game. And while I think it stands on its own, it's good. Before we do that, because we are going to try to get this into multiple languages, before we turn it into any language, I think we should predict what we are going to find in each language. I heavily made a point on how there was a similarity between creating a way to hold information about a number and creating a way to hold information about a number. They're the same thing. And that's the kind of aspect of this that jumps out. I'm sure there'll be a lot of aspects that don't jump out, but this one specifically does jump out, as it's the same step, but for a different thing. So I want to create at least a checklist, not for what we are going to do in this program, but what we're going to expect to find in programming languages to support making programs like this and others. That checklist will allow us to make sure we have everything we need to be able to make this program. And since this program is about as simple and bare bones as possible, that checklist is going to kind of be like every programming language needs this, so it probably should have it, so we probably should be able to find it very quickly. And it'll be interesting to see how that works out in each language. And if we make a good prediction, if we make a really bad prediction, we won't find what we're looking for, and it'll actually be a hindrance. But if we do pretty decent, then it will be a help. Let's create another document. And in this document, we are going to write out the things we expect to find. Obviously, our first thing should be about creating a way to hold information. So holding information in general is what we would expect to find. And because we were doing it about number, and about comparisons, we should expect that there's multiple types of information. At the very least, a number and a comparison, but possibly more. I have that we're going to fill a number container and store info. So there's probably going to be a way to put that information into a container. What I'm looking for here is like an operation to write out in code to put information into a container. Next, we're going to need to be able to output information. Every single program, we have input, processing, and output. Like, how else would a computer get us the information from our program? So there's going to be a way to output that somehow. If there's a way to output it, then there better be a way to input it. Another point I had over here was that we had a generate comparison information. I have create a random value earlier. There's going to have to be a way to make comparisons, do math, all the basic arithmetic kind of thing, and that will provide automatic calculations. I was actually pretty ambiguous in this stage. For the most common output method, display the meaning of the contained comparison, I meant for it to be like a comparison is true or false, basically. If it's true, then say this. If it's false, then say that. That's pretty ambiguous the way I wrote it, but that idea of control, and I know from having programmed that there are things like if statements, that's going to be something we expect to find as a way to choose between different paths. And yay, we come to our last point, repetition, which was basically just have the pattern repeat. That step was pretty ambiguous too, and we're going to have to expect to find facilities in a programming language that make that ambiguity cleared up by simplicity. It should just be a regular old thing in every programming language to be able to repeat. And repetition is kind of the theme of this video, so it's funny that we end up off that. Now when we go forward into any programming language we choose to with our pseudocode, we have a checklist that we can look in each programming language to try to find these things. We should be able to find them, or something that does what they need to do. There should be some way of doing every single one of these. And if we find all of them, and that's all we have to learn, theoretically, aside from any technical issues, then we should be able to make our program in any kind of language. The only thing to do next is to test that out. And I'll see you there.